All right, ready?
I'm ready.
Cool. Okay. Liz, thanks so much for making time to chat with me today. I'm really excited to talk to you about Pajaro Valley Unified School District and your role in the district and how we worked together last year around the AI tutor with a pilot with some middle school students. So with that, I would just love to hear first a little bit more about you, your role currently in the district, and a little bit more about your district as well.
Well, I'm here at Pajaro Valley. We are a mid-sized district in California. We're kind of right above the central region near Santa Cruz, and we have about 15,000 students. We are currently on an enrollment decline, unfortunately, like many school districts in California. We also have a high number of English language learners and a high number of socially, economically disadvantaged students. So we have a lot coming at us. And as the early literacy coordinator, I look at all of our data and try to make some changes, needed changes to our students' instruction. So I primarily look at kindergarten through third grade. Unfortunately, in our district, all of our students, K through 12, have a literacy issue, right? Not every individual student, but across the board, across the district. We have low scores in our CAST scores, low scores on our universal screeners. We are struggling. So one of the first things I tried to convince everybody to do was to give a complete universal screener, which has helped tremendously. So we're learning a lot about looking at the data and what our students need. But that's in our elementary sites. In addition, we're looking at building up our teachers' background. We don't have a lot of background in reading skills. We're not given that in our credential. The state has made it clear they're going to help educate our teachers. But I was able to get the district to move a little bit quicker based on a grant and a lot of complaining, crying, kicking, going over the stories, looking at the data. So here we are in letters training to get some background. We're using our universal screener of Dibbles and Lectoda at elementary school, but I'm unable to reach the masses in middle school and high school because these are foundational literacy issues that we have here. But it doesn't mean that middle school and high school is getting left behind. We just have to be creative with how we meet those needs. So
And
I
Liz,
started.
to double click for a second, why exactly has it been harder to translate some of that work that's been done at the elementary level around foundational skills to the middle school and high school levels? Is it a question of staff training? Is it a question of resources, some combination of the above, time in the day?
Right. So because these are foundational skills, and foundational skills generally are focused on K2, though they are K5, which our governor has really highlighted this past summer when he put out a handbook for us. Most teachers don't feel it's their priority or even what they need to be teaching if they're not in K1, 2, 3. So we have that. If we don't feel like it's something that we're supposed to teach in our grade level, then we're probably not going to focus on it. We're not going to get the background in it. We're not going to make time for it. We're going to prioritize other things. So that has been the message, not just in our district, but across the state. So we are shifting our mindset. Now we see it's everybody's responsibility. And our middle school teachers, we're hearing a lot of middle school teachers saying, help, I am seeing that there's issues. What are we supposed to do? I spent some time with high school math teachers this year. They're saying the same thing. Here are these kids in these upper level math courses and these AP courses who can't attend to certain parts of the math that's being asked of them. And it's the literacy part, right? So it all trickles back down to K1, 2, where foundational skills should come from. So I have two things I have to get done. I have to ensure that our tier 1 instruction in K1, 2 is nice and strong so I can cut that off so that that problem doesn't continue to linger in middle school and high school. Second, I have to fill those gaps. How do I make it so that our middle school students and our high school students are getting everything they need? So those two things are very difficult and very different. And it's not even about staffing. It's not about money. It's not about time, really. It's about prioritizing the needs of our students and highlighting how we can meet those needs. It was wonderful that the governor put out some press and said, focus, K-1-2, you're focusing on literacy. Everything's around literacy. That's great. Even though he said it and we have sent it out, we have reshared his message, it's hard to change our mindset because in our classroom, we feel like we have so much to get done. So it's hard. It's a mindset. It's that coaching that comes with it. That part we don't have a lot of. I'm losing my last literacy coach. She is retiring in December, and I don't have any more literacy coaches in the district, any grade level. So that part is tough. We need somebody to help us walk that mindset shift while we're building our background, which is only happening in elementary school. While we're looking at the data, which is only happening in elementary school with Universal Screener, but now we're using STAR 3rd grade through 11th grade. So we're building that background of data now. So we're behind, but we're catching up. If we can all speak that same language of data to see, oh, our students have gaps, how are we going to meet this gap? At least we have that. That's a good starting point. Then we have to backfill our teachers on, well, what does that mean? And how do we get it done? So there's a lot, but I can't wait for 3 to 5 years. I got to get it done now.
Mm-hmm. And I know you're still in that process of collecting data. What data or kind of snapshots do you have about the need around foundational skills amongst your middle school students?
When we look at our CASP scores, we see that we, at our highest levels, we're at 46% proficient. At our lowest levels, I believe, I don't have this memorized correctly right now, believe we're at 24%. So it's not great. None of it is great. And it's a higher struggle, of course, for our English language learners or our multilingual learners, right? 70% of our students that are multilingual learners in middle school are unable to read at their reading level, at their grade level.
Super helpful context. So I know that we first crossed paths when I was doing a webinar with the Reading League of California, and you reached out soon thereafter to talk about whether there could be some potential for a pilot with some of our tools and some of your students. Give me a little bit of context on why you were interested in trying our student practice program, the AI tutor, at the middle school level specifically, and how you chose which students might be involved in that.
Well, again, I'm putting all this effort into K-3. Again, we have a grant from the state that helps us focus. They chose certain schools. We work with a tremendous amount of time with them. And then we can kind of pull out to K-5. But middle school was perplexing, and we had a lot of teachers leaning in. What's going on? How do I help my students? There's no movement. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? So speaking with our ELA director, Rich, we were able to kind of think, really highlight and focus on middle school in a different perspective. Like, what is it that they can do? Who can reach the kids? So we kind of split off. He reached out to another agency, and they are helping to backfill their teachers with some science of reading information. And these are ELA and ELD teachers at middle school. But they're still at the beginning. So while they're learning that background, what else could we do? So here, that's my part. I listened and I thought, ooh, maybe while we're trying to educate our teachers and trying to brainstorm ways where they can meet their students, we can try this out. as a tier 2 solution, at a busy, busy site, I had spoken with some middle school teachers that are very open to things. So I asked one specifically, and right away she said, yes, tell me more about it. I will try it. So then I spoke with my coach about this. Okay, I have an idea. What do you think about this? Will you help me out? And I actually spoke with their school library media tech also. I said, I want to try this out. Do you have some space? Can you watch these kids while this happens? I'm not sure what it's going to be like. We're just going to try it out. She was open. My coach was open to helping. The principal was open, and the principal then was eager to choose students. She said, okay, at her middle school, it's an international academy. These are students that are multilingual learners. They're part of our DLI program. So they came from a DLI elementary school. They're going to go to a DLI high school. Here they are. And this also includes newcomers. And then she also wanted to include students that are receiving special help through SELPA. They have special needs. And said, okay, let's go for it. Who do you think? Let's assess them. So I had my coach assess the students. The teachers were on board. We had 3 teachers, they were on board. I wanted to assess the students because I didn't want it just to be on hearsay or CASP. I needed more data than that. So we used the CORE Phonics Survey, and we also used that PASS so we could get some phonemic awareness background. And my coach did those assessments. From that, we really just trimmed it down. Okay, here's students with the largest needs. How can we make this work? We have a program. I've heard about this program. So really the principal was just taking my word for it because she saw the need and the urgency. Because we're always talking about urgency here. I feel the urgency. I listened to your meeting, your webinar, and thought, oh, that works. That feels urgency, right? It's immediate. They could do it at their site. They don't need a lot of training to get it done. I think we can make it happen. So it just kind of all came together like that. Students were selected. My coach did go every day to observe them and help them. And the library media tech was there to ensure that the students were there. They had all their materials. Everything was charged and ready to go. So that was wonderful. On my side, I checked the dashboard a lot because I wanted to see progress. I was getting updates and I wanted to see that something was happening because usually we don't get a lot of movement, right? We intervene. It takes a long time. We reassess. We try and see if something is working or not working. Well, with this program, I was getting a lot of updates and there was movement from the get-go, right? I was getting data that says this kid was moving, this child was not, they're stumped on this section right here. So then having that clear communication with the teachers to say, okay, focus on this, that was helpful so that they can add that back into their day. What I wasn't expecting was teachers to reach out and say, wow, this is really working, and I'm seeing it in my classroom already. I can see it because this student is reading this passage on their own. This student is participating more. This student is willing to try. I was not thinking I was going to hear that in such a short amount of time. Yeah.
And when you say short amount of time, how long are you talking? Because the pilot itself was only 6-7 weeks.
The pilot was short and it got interrupted because of a few things. No, I heard that back in the first 2 weeks. And my coach was helping with phonemic awareness. So that was an additional piece. But we know phonemic awareness is that underline, right? You're not going to get a lot of wonderful phonics data by building that phonemic awareness, right? That's building fluency. That's being able to break down those multisyllabic words. That's keeping that working memory. So it was useful. It was important. But they needed to go together. And we didn't have another system. Like she could do that for phonemic awareness for a few minutes every day, but we didn't have anything for phonics. So this really was kind of like my last ditch effort to, how am I going to get people in middle school to listen to me? Let's try this. If this doesn't work, I have no other ideas right now. So
yeah, I
kind of
remember
got
when
lucky.
we first met, you were like, this is my last hope and prayer," I think was the quote you shared with us at the time we first met before the pilot. And it was actually
Oh,
our first time doing a tier 2 or 3 middle school intervention pilot. So I was really curious about the data too. And what I love about using CORE Phonics for before and after is you just get to see really granular data on what sort of words they're able to decode and which ones they're not. So
mhm.
give me a little context to the extent that you can recall about roughly where these students were. I know there was a bit of dispersion, but they were all kind of at a pretty early and seemingly stuck place on core phonics
Right,
at the time they were assessed in mid-April.
right. So most of these students were reading at the first grade level, first first grade mid-year, um, and just having trouble even with CVCs and long vowels. So we were way at the beginning, way at the beginning. And then the students had lost confidence, right? Because part of reading is confidence. If I'm willing to try it out and, you know, apply my skills is one thing, right? You can meet those students, you keep moving them. If I've shut down because I don't know what's going on, I am not going to try anymore. I'm not going to participate. You've lost them. And these were those students. These were the students that were no longer participating. They shut down. They were silent. They're not talking in their class ever. They're weak in both languages, right? English and Spanish for one of the students was really low in both languages. It is just, these were the shutdown kids. So they had made no growth. That's so many years to sit in a classroom and not know what's going on. So immediately,
The district prior to the pilot or prior to that point in school for how long? Were these newcomers or were these students that had been here for a while?
so 3 of these kiddos had always been here. They have been here.
The-
Yeah, there's 4. There's 3 that have always been there. There's 1 that's an EO. So there's 1 student that does have other speech and language delay issues. So this was, you know, we're just trying this out. Is this going to work? And it did, because a lot of it is articulation practice over and over again. So all 4 students made growth in every area and moved past where they started and were able to apply it into the classroom. Most of the students also responded to us and let us know that they felt confident in doing so. I think they were open again. I can learn, I can read, I do know what's going on. And so they kept coming back. I mean, a lot of these kids had to leave their PE class early or were late to another class to engage in this time, and they kept coming back. That alone says a lot, right? Most kids in middle school are not going to carve out time to learn how to read. It's not it, right? So it was wonderful. That made us have, that alone makes a principal and the teacher lean in to want to continue. Then you see them also applying it in the classroom. So their skills, so their grade level skills are growing as they're building up their foundational reading skills. Huge. That's huge. The principal was so pleased that she wanted to continue growing this, especially with one teacher, the one teacher who could see it the most. Because he was really leaning into the data, and he was in particular paying attention to what the students were now getting that they hadn't before. So that teacher asked, well, can I continue in the fall? And that's where we are right now. We have 50 students who are in this program, whether they're in the International Academy or they're in special ed courses. He's there to help them move on, and he is using this as part of his tier 2 to help students move on. And they have just started their STAR testing. So they're eager to find out in the next week if what he's seeing in the classroom matches up to the scores on that assessment, because he is seeing application, a higher level of application in the classroom.
Super helpful. And if we could just double click a little bit more on the qualitative side of the data. I know we talked about what was really remarkable growth on core phonics in particular, and I'm happy to show that data actually real quickly. Let's actually do that before we go over to the let me share my screen, and hopefully that makes it into the recording here. Okay, so this is just a little walkthrough where the bars that are in that yellow-orange color are from before in mid-April, and then end of May, 6 weeks later, we have the green bars. And for each of these students, it was about 45 to 50 minutes a week that each of them read collectively. So it was, 10 minutes, 12 minutes a day. And we just saw incredible growth from that time period, even just 6 weeks, across all parts. And what was interesting is when we looked at the data, some of these we didn't even get to. Some of these students, because they advance according to scope and sequence, which now follows UFly. So for a lot of these students, they had gains on their multisyllabic decoding, even though in the tutor over those 6 weeks, they might have only gotten from CVC through Magic Eve words or into digraphs. They didn't even get to multisyllabic words, but they still saw gains there, which was really interesting to me.
Yeah, we're filling in those gaps, right? So when I fill in those gaps, I can make, leaps and bounds and make all these jumps because I have what I need at those earlier levels. The short vowels is the most, I think that data makes me want to cry the most, right? These are middle school students. They don't have all their short vowels in English, but they've been in our school system since kindergarten. It's terrible. It's terrible. And I'm smiling so I don't cry because I don't like that. But then to see that growth, that was amazing in just 6 weeks. I'm eager to see what's going to happen this year, right? I'm very excited to see that because then we can stretch it out. That's one middle school. Well, I have others. And if we can continue to see this growth, it's a pretty easy sell to the other schools to take a look, to try it, to carve it out into their day, because we're all having this issue. Our students are not reading at grade level and they never catch up, right? There we are at the end of 8th grade. If you're not where you need to be, you are functionally illiterate. And that's what we're putting out into society. How unfair for these students and their families. It's not okay. So this helps me bridge that. I'm working on elementary school, but I can't ignore middle school and high school. And this is my possible solution. That's why I'm very happy, right? Our scores were, they came up so high. Each student came up so much. I mean, when you look at that data, just the short vowels, right? We went from 40% to 100. You had this boom. My students, now they know their vowel sounds. That's a no-brainer. Of course, we're going to continue with this. This is filling a need. So we were very happy with that. To hear the students that they were happy with it also, that warmed our hearts. We were very ecstatic.
Yeah, let's double click on that now. The quantitative data is really, like you said, it's emotionally moving. I was equally moved, if not more so, by the fact that you collected a bunch of qualitative data as well and interviewed the students and talked to them about how they felt about this whole process as students who'd been in the district for so long and had been struggling for so long with reading. Can you talk a little bit about what came out of those interviews with students and even their teachers?
Well, the teachers were very satisfied. Teachers were very happy because it was not another thing on their plate, but they know how helpful it is and they could see it, and their students were coming back more confident and more able to attend to the classroom level. When we asked the students if it helped, they said, yes, yes, it did help. It helps me with reading. It helps me with the words. What was the best part? Reading aloud with the mic. I thought that was funny. They felt more confident, and they liked that it would teach them. I think because there's also not a judgment placed on it, right? It's very, here's what it is. Now you try it. There's no judgment. With this student, the student said, it helped me speak. It helped me with talking more fluid, right? She more fluently, which was a large issue for her, because she got a lot of talking practice. We call that time on the tongue, right? A lot of time to practice in our classroom. Sometimes we walk in and our students are not talking. They're just sitting there listening. Well, they're not going to learn like that. There's only, you learn a little bit from listening. You learn a little bit from discussing. You learn a little bit from practicing. She was not getting enough. This gave her more time to practice, to speak, and it was very helpful. She liked that a lot. And in her individualized data, you could see all of her sounds come up, her scores, because she was then articulating them correctly. So that's what I have to say about those. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm curious, you mentioned that oftentimes with interventions you are looking for kernels of growth. They take a while if they come at all. They often don't come at all. You mentioned a couple key parts of the program, which were the lack of judgment, which students enjoyed in reading out loud to a computer. You mentioned seeing the articulatory gestures. If you were just to kind of back up for a second, why does this feel different to you than maybe other traditional ed tech or other intervention solutions that you've seen before in your career? Why were the results here so different?
Well, individualization always plays a role, right? And we try to individualize as much as possible. So there's many programs that are individualized, but I felt like this one pinpointed better. And there's nothing babyish about it. Some of the software out in the world to help our students, we might like, they might not, right? That makes a difference. It's how they perceive it. I could think I'm making something that's not babyish. That's cool, but they might not see it that way. And this is just very direct. This is what it is. We're learning this. So there was no judgment. It's just very clean lines, right? We're working on this. And then when it's done, it's done. I think they appreciated that. Especially in middle school, where they're embarrassed and they already know they don't know how to read. It's embarrassing. They don't want to participate in class because they can't. It's embarrassing. It's time for them. It's just them and the computer, right? They're getting their direct need, no baby stuff around them, no other person around them to judge them. Then they go back into the classroom, and because their teacher is looking at the data also, their teacher is highlighting the areas that they are still needing work with in a way that is grade level appropriate, right? With the grade level text. So I don't think the students ever knew that the teacher was doing that. I don't think that they felt called out. Like, oh, we're all talking about, digraphs or whatnot, because it was quick, it was applied in the classroom. So I think that's why this one works. Individualized, not babyish, teachers taking that little nugget of wisdom and applying it to the classroom. I think that's why. And the time on the tongue. We need that.
Yeah, they're reading out loud. They're not clicking and tapping through screens. So let's talk about challenges real quick. I think that there's a lot of questions, both specific to the tool that one might have, and then more broadly about AI in education. So let's tackle those in order. First, what challenges might have come up? We've talked a lot about the positive elements of the program, but I imagine that it probably misheard them from time to time.
Mhm.
How do you think about that it's not, maybe the speech recognition is an ever evolving work in progress with the technology? Was that a deal stopper? Apparently not. So I'm curious about what challenges you all encountered and how you addressed them.
That was a challenge, and it's just part of the growth process, right? When we are screening with the universal screener, I hear a lot of judgment on that one as well, because it's new to us. So when we're learning new software, there's the teacher part. How do I use this? And then there's the trust part. There's the data part. There's all these parts. So I can't really judge and say, well, because that one part of the program is still learning and growing, the program's not great. Not really. That was not a turn off for us, because we know there's our side, their side, the student side, the software side. So it kind of balanced out. Does that make sense? We're
Yeah, I mean,
all learning it.
on average, it was good enough, even if it continues to
Mhm.
grow and evolve. And yeah, the speech
Right.
recognition, we're always trying to get it right, because you have different dialects, and disentangling what might
Correct.
be a dialect thing versus a decoding deficit. So that, I think, is the hardest thing we do. And I think it's helpful to hear that, yeah, it wasn't perfect at every single point, but it was good enough to give them real-time positive reps.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So yeah, the student that some of the students, it didn't bother at all. They didn't have a negative. One student said sometimes it didn't hear you. And okay, so they would do it again. So those are little, there was nothing that was large enough to say no, obviously, because my principal wanted to buy it for more students, and then to see how it can expand after this. So, that's a positive. So we are happy with that. Mhm.
So zooming out of the program, like technical challenges, perhaps, I think a lot of educators have a rightful level of angst around AI in education, and think about the notion of an AI tutor as possibly a substitute for all of their learned experiences, skills, and all that they pour into their students. What's your view on how this tool, as you mentioned, your teachers really appreciated it. Uh, What would you say to educators that are kind of wondering about whether this can be something that works with them versus as opposed to like a substitute?
Right. There's no substitute for a teacher. Sorry. We bring all the magic. That's all there is. We have the relationships with the students. We know when to apply these out of screen time. There's nothing that's going to help us do that. That's our background. That's us learning. That's so much professional years of experience. That can't replace us. What AI does is it helps pinpoint something so I can get what I need and then spend all of my precious teacher time with the students, because I don't have a lot of time with them. So I need all that time there. I don't need to create a lesson plan for 2 hours for one small group where I have 5 small groups. I don't have 10 hours a week to do that, plus all my other teaching and grading and assessments and whatnot. This helps me zoom in and focus. Okay, my students are getting this targeted instruction, and then I'm going to see, oh, that little nugget, I'm going to add that nugget into my daily lesson. That's easy for me to do because I'm a skilled instructor. So all AI does is give me my time back. It doesn't teach it. It does teach my students their targeted piece, but it doesn't take over teaching. I'm not worried that it's going to take my job. Maybe it will in the future, but there's a lot of that one-on-one stuff that teachers can actually focus on that they can't right now. There's just too much. This helps us. This is definitely a partner.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I mean, the reason why we started building this was because when I was teaching, I felt like I didn't have enough time individually with students to give them the reps and feedback they needed. I
Mhm.
could do set the stage with high quality direct instruction, but especially with phonics, for so many kids, it's a reps game, right? And
Mhm.
so that's just something that I felt like there was a gap this could fill, that even the best teachers wish they had more ability to do, but it's just a logistical constraint, right?
Truth. And then, in secondary where, okay, I don't have this background, or I'm getting this background, but I'm still kind of learning how it applies to me in secondary. My students are getting their needs met, and then it tells me. It's much easier when I know that students need help with Venn diagrams, okay, because I can figure that out. Then I can learn about that. But I might not
So
think
Liz,
of that in secondary. Yeah.
I'm curious, we have other schools and districts that use this in K3, let's say first through third is more
Mhm.
common than especially first half of kindergarten. What would make you say, yes, this could be a good fit for that? Or how come you've chosen not to do that route?
We have chosen not to do that route, though I can see how it's very helpful because we're removing a lot of technology from our classrooms due to an over-reliance, right? We
Mm,
were not working together with our technology. We were having it take over, and that doesn't work. So right now we're working on ensuring our instructors have the background that they need to meet our students' needs with literacy. Um, and then making good choices with our curricular materials and tools that we use. So what I would like to see is our district use this in fourth and fifth as a tier 2 to help out, and eventually third, fourth, and fifth. But we do not right now because we need our teachers to shore up that tier 1 instruction, which means they need that background. Mhm. But fourth
helpful,
and fifth, I think, is sooner than later.
Yeah, it's funny. I do think there's a, kind of critical conversation that's happening with the overcorrection on screen time. And sometimes it feels like kids are zombies when you just see them almost being digitally babysat, right, by a device. And um, I do think that a lot of screen time that happens in schools right now is net negative screen time. Um, my last question for you is to other administrators in your shoes, whether that's at the district level or at the school level. Do you have any final reflections or thoughts about how you would think about using Project Read's AI tutor with students to solve the challenges that you've seen in your district?
If I had my way and was in full control of literacy, which I'm not, I would use this after school in our ELOP. I would use it in our fourth and fifth across the district for tier 2. I would use this in middle school and high school for all of our struggling readers to help them get what they need and to help teachers understand what students need so that they can apply it with their teacher magic. Um, I think that would be our best fit in our district, mid-sized district, 15,000 students, a lot of needs, a lot of language needs. This is also helping our language learners, right? You have to be really clear on those English sounds. It's very helpful. So even though it's a literacy tool, literacy and ELD really go together. I'm not talking about vocabulary, but just that articulation. It's very helpful. So I would suggest to other people who are struggling like we are, yes, you're shoring up your tier 1. Yes, you're giving your teachers their background in science of reading and structured literacy. Yes, this also helps. This fits perfectly while all those things are going on, so nobody is left. We don't want to leave any students out. This is the perfect piece to kind of put it all together.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your